And the coffee is on, and Peter is there in Denver. Let's see here. Can I get the webcam to work on my computer? Yeah. Hello, Peter.
Hello, Isa.
Good morning. Welcome to the cafe.
Awesome. Happy to be here. I got my coffee and I
Excellent.
made sure I got a nice good one this morning. I paid $7 for my coffee this morning.
I was going to ask about this. You mentioned a breve, and I'm like, oh, yeah, it's got all the fat milk in it. But, like, what does a breve cost? So the breve is $7.
Well, it was six something, but I
Yeah.
left $1. So
Uh-huh. Do you remember when a $5 milkshake sounded ridiculous?
I remember when a $2. I remember when coffee was $2, and me and my in high school, and me and my friends were like, we like the 85-cent, coffee shop thing. $2. I'm not going to pay for this. I might as well stay home.
Uh-huh. Okay. Well, hey, you know what I did? I didn't get our slides just right here. I didn't actually let's see. Let's go back to no slides, just you and me. Okay, hey, good morning. It's making a sound now, so I got to take that off in a minute. Well, hey, let me get the slides queued up for us
Sure.
and tell people what we're going to do. Oh, no, I just removed it. I got to add it back. There we go. Okay, well, we sort of have an agenda, but we're not really sure what's going to happen as far as I know.
It's an in the moment agenda.
Okay, yeah.
And it's my design birthday.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's how I thought to invite you for today. So let's look at that. So that means your design sun is in 20.5. There it is. Look at that. So this is the beginning of what they call, I've heard it called the red zone. Has this ever been an issue for you? Have you noticed yourself doing things in that time that did or didn't work out for the rest of your solar return year?
I've never really contemplated that.
Okay.
Uh, it's I remember. I think I remember you posted something about that a few months ago. There was a discussion that was going on. Something raw. Even you mentioned it, and then some people were like, "No, that's how could that possibly be?" And then you're like, "Here's the quote from Ra. It's right there."
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah. I take all that stuff. I take all these things loosely. It's we have our life, and so
Uh-huh.
who knows what's coming? Who knows what's coming between May and August? A lot of things could happen. I don't know. If I look back at my life, did I set most things into motion after that, or try to push it in the summertime?
Well, I
I don't
guess the
know.
thing that I'm always looking for is, did you get into trouble for making any new decisions, like changes in your life during that time? That's the thing that I think that I'm looking out for, is like, make sure you don't. But it's okay if it's not something you've noticed before. No worries. Let me see here. So I wanted to point out what a crazy transit we've got going. I mean, hello to this person. Hello. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, like, does that, I look at charts like that sometimes, I go, oh my goodness, who are you? Every once in a
Right.
while I'll see one and go, I'm gonna meet you someday. Oh, hey, look at that close up.
Yeah, and so many, and just even the gates. I mean, there's a handful of, the collective gates here and stuff, but this is mostly individual chemistry coming
How
through.
how powered. I know. Okay.
And
So what else oh yeah. You want to keep looking at that?
oh, just saying, I just have I have a special place in my heart for freaky people. And
Mm-hmm.
so they need support because they don't they're forced to fit in, and yeah, here this person's meant to be a little selfish and meant to do their own thing. They're not meant to fit into a box. So that can be really confusing when you come into this life, and it depends on, yeah, what else is going on, but
Mm-hmm.
the
But this person
projection
is not lacking in power. But everything happening here is personality, right?
and
That's another angle. Like, you think that you've got it all going on, but what if this person's design is all hanging red gates like my design? So you think you got it all going on, but your body's actually just like letting life happen. It's a challenge for me. I mean, this is what mine looks like. Having black personality channels. So yeah, look at me. I'm made up as a manifester by these black channels. You have two of the same channels, but then you've got a few more gates that makes you a manifesting generator. And the difference is big. Okay, let's see. Is there anything else I should come like I'm playing around with slides in a stupid way. Let me introduce you. I'd like to introduce you. Can I introduce you, Peter?
Sure.
Okay, Peter. I don't remember how we met, but the internet was involved, and you've been involved in human design a lot longer than me, maybe 10 years or something. I want to say.
Since 2010, so just about to hit my 13th year here.
And you have some qualifications. You spent more time in school than I have as well. And this might not be totally up to date. Is there anything missing on this list of qualifications? I know that you're training to train guides to become a guide teacher, but that's not done yet, right?
It actually is done.
Okay.
I just a part of I took the course and the training before. I was supposed to be able to be a rave cartography teacher for a certain period of time before I got that qualification. So I kind of just have to let a little bit of time pass before IHDS actually just hands me the actual certificate. So taking a training, I'm ready to go to train people to become guides. But anytime you take a class to become a teacher, it's quite a process.
Okay, I'd like to hear about that.
I mean, I got my rave cartography teacher certification last year, and it took up my whole year. It took up my whole year of studying, and because I don't know if it's just my process being 2 open head centers and 3 parts right. I don't take notes. I just listen over and over and over and over again until I know it. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I do know.
We have something in common there. Okay.
And so, yeah, it's quite something. And then to make your slides, to make it your own, to put your own spin on it, to go through the class the first few times, to work out the glitches and feel through how the material, is transmitted through each of our own unique, way of delivering it it's quite a journey. And so the more long and dense and professional the trainings get, it's, I don't want to, we're not here just to barely know the information that we're delivering. We're here to embody it and live it and know it 100%. And I mean, not necessarily 100%, but have be deep in it before delivering it. So anyway, I took the guide training, teacher training, LYD guide teacher training with a lock, and that was my first time actually in, as far as I can remember, in 13 years studying with a manifester teacher. And that was very impactful. It was really, really amazing to study with a manifester teacher, and a lock, of course, being, one of Ra's oldest students and old friends as well. So it was very, very intimate and very, very powerful transmission, very different delivery of the knowledge. Which I really,
would like
really
to
appreciated.
ask you about that. I wonder if you can articulate any differences. So from where I'm coming from is there's a California school and there's a Europe school, is kind of how I see it. And I hear really different language about human design coming out of California and coming out of Europe, a lock included. So is that a difference that you noticed? That there's
I never thought of it as like California versus Europe. I see it more as like there's different generations of people who've been with the knowledge, and you know, the early students of Ra, you know, so that like really that first generation of students, they didn't have type, they didn't have, I don't
they
think they even
started
had
without type.
profile. Maybe I don't think they even had profile. It was you know, it was the centers and the channels and the hexagrams. And honestly, that is where I find some of the earlier teachers offer something to us that has almost, I don't want to say disappeared, but kind of been swept under the rug, is the magic and fullness of the full mandala and the wheel, the wheel, and looking at the geometries, the hidden geometries. Well, they're right in front of you, but you know, the geometries that are there, all the ways that, you know, when you look around the rave mandala, you pick a gate, each one of those gates has a polarity, you know, so the one that's on the opposite side, which balances it out, and then it has the I guess you call it the
harmonic
harmonic
at the other
harmonic
end of the
gate,
channel.
the one that makes the
Okay.
other channel. So there's that.
Yeah.
And then there is the consecutive order around the wheel. Where's it going in the process? So there's like almost 3 primary ways that each gate can relate to another gate, but it's not just another gate. It's a whole aspect of, it's a whole answer to a question. It's a whole genetic continuity process. It's a whole relationship within our body, because, you know, even you look at each of the gates, you know, is in a different quarter, and so, you know, okay, the polarity is one thing, but the harmonic gate that makes the other side of the channel, that's going to be in a different in a different quarter. It's going to be, or could be in a different quarter. It's not always a different quarter, but it could be in a different, coming out of a different center. Even that's something that gets overlooked so much, is people are so enticed by the substructure that we overlook the depth within the superficial, if I can say it that way. You know, just even looking at the centers. I mean, I have a you know, talk about a life trajectory. It's always interesting to see, you know, look back at your life and see what brought you to where you are today. So what I mean by that is, I had 2 or 3 years teaching anatomy and physiology and pathology as a science teacher. And so it's really informed me so much, especially like teaching rave cartography, which goes a lot more into the biology, to see that, you know, even there, all the centers, they're not these isolated, you know, squares and triangles in this little hub of your body. I had a client yesterday. She said, "Oh, so all my power is down here in this corner." You know, she had a lot of lower centers defined. I'm like, no, it's not really. This isn't your power down in your, you know, lower right quadrant. And it's your whole body. They all correlate with, you know, your the G center is your liver and blood. Your blood goes through everything. Your blood touches everything. Your root center correlates with your adrenal glands. That pressure get all those stress hormones, you know, the endocrine hormones get picked up into the bloodstream. That goes into your brain. It goes everywhere. Everything is connected. So anyway, a long routing there to talk about the old and the new ways of teaching and delivering, and the gifts that the older teachers, older generation teachers can give us, is looking at the depth of the hexagrams around the wheel. And so that's something I'm really excited to dive into, and I'm hoping next year, I'm looking to kind of close my body work practice, which I've had 25 years, and just to go a lot more fully into all the things with human design, not only classes, but I really want to do some like study groups and take people around the wheel and explore these polarities and explore these geometries, and because I really don't see that happening almost anywhere in design right now.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm familiar with what you're talking about because I've been reading Alok's book of the 64 gates, that recent published transcription. Um, I'm curious how that conveyed into LYD guide training. Are you saying that in guide training he was talking about polarities and harmonics and things like that? I'm curious about the guide training perspective that you got from him. And
Well, a little bit.
let me be clear. Let me be clear on one thing too. Did he ever say anything like you should teach your own type as a guide?
Well, let me answer your questions in order.
Yeah.
There. So one, Alok teaches living your design as in one way that he teaches it, calls his program called the XXL.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, a little bit more expanded view of living your design. And when I teach living your design, like my classes just get longer and longer and longer because I'm like, there's so much here to talk about. And I know a lot of people.
I know it's really difficult to keep it to 90 minutes or even 2 hours, and there's so many detailed questions that come in, substructure, keeping it simple is not easy.
I can talk 2.5 hours without even opening it up for questions. I mean, it's just because there's not only the knowledge, but there's the living it, and so it's.
And which one is LYD even about, right? At one time, it was a catalyst for your own experiment. Now it's a prerequisite course, and it seems like it's. But boy, maybe I shouldn't hijack this conversation to talk about this issue that I see as a big problem, as far as.
Yeah, it's kind of it's interesting to observe what's happening because a lot of the foundational knowledge is just being spread around just all over the place. So a lot of people come in, but come in feeling like, I don't need to do this because I already know it. But we all can relate to that experience of having studied a bit and not wanting to start all over. But there is, the foundations keep going deeper and deeper and deeper. And I've been really humbled by that as a teacher, because it anywhere you focus on human design, it's such a living system. You can just focus on one little thing, whether it's a gate or a center or an open center or a channel, whatever it is, wherever you put your attention to, it starts to come alive, and it says, hey, come with me, let me show you a little more, let me show you something you haven't thought about. Talk about contemplation. We're in a gate of contemplation. When you focus on something in the moment, it starts to unfold and reveal itself. To me, that's the fractal nature of human design. It has layers that continue to unfold, and if you think you're beyond it, if you think you're, oh yeah, I've been there, done that, you're shortchanging yourself to see what there is to see. So yeah, go ahead.
I'm gonna say I had to try to share something like that in LYD the other day. Like, if you're 2 years in and you're questioning the system, okay, you're questioning the system, but don't assume that you know enough to disregard the basic mechanics that you don't understand yet, that you are violating in the way that you're talking to me about it right now. Like, there's a humbling that I find in people that go through some kind of formal education, because then you get to go, oh shit, I thought I was so smart.
Hmm.
And I didn't, yeah.
And talk about being a heretic, you know, I'm a 3-5, so I can relate to
Yeah.
the heretic paradigm. But a lot of people say, well, I'm a heretic, I don't need to study traditionally, you know. I'm a rebel, so I'm not going to go any traditional path. And you know, I personally take a different approach. Just uh, you know, but to put it simply, I trust the ones that have come before me who've all said the
Mhm.
same thing. Just, you know, just go through the foundations and then make it your own and then do what you want from there. But I mean, whatever, you know, we don't need to get into the whole, I mean, I love to complain about things, but only for a few minutes. um, you know, 3-5s. Complaining is actually a gift for 3-5s because, you know, we get to actually see what's not working and talk about it and get it off our chest a little bit. But you know, that's been my approach is, you know, let me take the very traditional classes. You know, it's not like I have something to prove. It's just, let me see what people who've been in their experiment for twice as long as I have. What do they have to say? And then when you hear some of the older teachers talk, um, it's pure keynoting language. And I don't know if I don't know if people always recognize that. When I,
Yeah. I want to point out your Mercury at 24/3 and my Mercury at personality Mercury at 24/3, your design Mercury. So for us, hearing the people, hearing the transmission is a key for us to getting it into our heads. Is that fair?
um, you mean like live
Yeah, well, I mean,
or just actual
the
the
actual
audio?
audio transmission that there is a human whose frequency is reaching out and touching us and
Well,
mutating us.
absolutely. I mean, I am an audio, acoustic, very acoustically sensitive person. I'm listening to headphones
Mhm,
purposely because when it goes into my brain, this is just a little, you know, personal human design hack that I found is when I have the headphones on, it goes in so much
mhm,
deeper. My brain, my
mhm.
right and left brain take it in so much better, or whatever, however my cognition works, it takes it in, whatever. I don't even know what it is, but it's very, very sensitive to sound of people's voices, you know, the quality there, absolutely.
And in contrast, like Facebook and Instagram are places where there is no audio transmission. It's only eye candy, only mind stuff. I
And
for me,
regurgitated knowledge mostly. That's honest.
yeah.
As an individual, talking about individual chemistry,
Hmm.
that's also something that I feel is starting to see a little more of it. But one of the gifts of, or I don't know if it's a gift, but one of a beautiful thing to experiment with in your human design experiment is to make it your own. You know, find your own ways to talk about things. And I you know, I think there's absolute value to people, you know, taking all these quotes from Ra and stuff like that. But I personally I like to see people thinking for themselves. I like to see what's coming out of them. I'd rather see something unique and original and mutative than just, you know, reposting a meme from someone else. That's just me.
Yeah, I hear you. And in the science of differentiation, this is what we're actually doing. If we're paying attention, we are differentiating ourselves. We are in this process of going, I don't have to be like all the felt forces were pushing me to be. I actually have my own genetic setup and I could explore what it's like to live as my own genetic setup versus what I was conditioned to think I was supposed to do. Now, looking at my chart, it's challenge for me on a daily basis. Like, am I really not supposed to be working? Like, what? um, so speaking of unique, you made a comment some years, I don't know how long ago, but it was about these charts we're looking at, and I was like, huh, I noticed your unique comment. So I want to ask you about it now. It's about these body graphs. So on the left, yours is in the MMI format, right? The structure,
Mhm.
the aesthetic. The one on the right is from My Body Graph, which is also from Jovian. But you can see they look different. They have different aesthetics to them. And your comment that you mentioned somewhere was something about, I like straight lines in my body graph. So I'm curious if you want to tell me what that was about. Because there's a difference, but I don't know if I care. I'm curious what you notice.
Yeah, I think it's just a preference thing. I think people kind of get used to the programs they use. For me, when I look at the straight lines, I mean, even though it's straight lines, I've taught my, when you look at a body graph, in my primary work with human design, or what I do the most of, is I do chart analysis. I do readings for people. I don't know, 3 to 5 readings a week, full readings. And so I look at a lot of charts, and over the years, it's, the body graph is really a map. It's a map is what it is. And so, and it's a story. It has a story here. It's actually, we could almost judge ourselves or think it's kind of silly to look at a body graph and say, oh, there's almost kind of like a little story going on here. Like just even the way that what it looks like. What,
Well,
what
this is why I want to ask about it, because in these different softwares, there's all kinds of different images that are coming out. And to me, it also makes a difference, like what story is being told depending on the aesthetics of the shape of it. Now, Ra hand drew it originally, right? He hand drew a body graph while he was uh, in the encounter, right? He was instructed on how to draw, and it had straight lines and the triangle. And I've read a few references from at least one person, maybe more, that the straight edges of this triangle are important. They're actually part of it, and the geometry of the body graph itself is part of the communication. Is that something you've ever heard of, or that you're noticing yourself?
well, that's what that resonates with me in the way that
Okay.
I see it, because even when I look at this body graph, I see it almost three-dimensional. You can
Uh-huh.
you can kind of see it a lot, like between the sacral and the G and the spleen
Yeah.
and the heart. It's almost
Yeah.
like it almost starts to look like it's like kind of coming alive there. And so
I've heard that that ego is, it's behind and it's kind of out on the edge of the aura. Like even this picture kind of squishes it in, but if you were to three-dimensional it, that the ego is kind of out on the edge. Hmm.
mhm, mhm. And I guess, when these first started coming out, the more rounded ones, I mean, round is nice. It's more soft, it's more feminine, and we are yin, receptive, nine-centered beings. So, I think there's a value to that. It's not that I don't like it. I don't not like it. I just prefer the straight lines for seeing things. And let's see, did I want to say one more thing about that? Um yeah, I guess also it just kind of goes in with that, why fix something that's not broken? Why is, everyone wants to imp- make their own contributions and make their own changes to the system, when, like you were saying, like it's fine as it is. So, but I mean,
If you
ultimately, I
think you
think
have
it's
to
just a
change
matter.
the system, you haven't studied very far in the system yet,
Probably, yeah.
is my
So,
impression.
mhm. No, yeah, because it looks a lot of, when you first come into it, a lot of it looks a little chaotic and cryptic and a little haphazard, but the deeper you go, you're like, oh, there's a reason why it's called the bigot or something. There's a reason why it's called has these names. It does make sense. It is appropriate. And who knows if we were each faced with that same ominous task. You're a clarion, ominous task of translating light into sound, what Ra had to do with this. Maybe we would have used some different terms or terminologies or done it a little differently, but anyway, I think I think ultimately it just comes down to maybe a visual preference for some people. I know other people who, I don't know very many people who've been using a program for a few years and just want to switch over to another one. Usually just get used to the functionality of the program you're working with. Practical. It's a practical thing. That's the
have you ever
that's the 25, just realism or whatever it's called.
Yeah, okay, well, we can go there. Let's see, contemplation in the now. So the sun here in 20 and the earth is in 34, and we have your sun is there, your design sun, my personality Jupiter. So I was looking at these. This is the I don't know what you call it, but this is the lesson we're here to learn in this, from this gate, is, if I'm saying that correctly. And yeah.
And the 25 in particular is called realism.
Yep.
It's just
heretical contemplation in the now is realism. It's heretical.
And it's very practical. It's got a very practical side to it. It's just this is what I see. It's good or it's good or bad or not good or bad. It just is what it is. And that's, to me, this really is part of my 3-5 nature. Is like, there's no, like, again, there's no morality on what you're pointing out. It's just, it's when we put morality on what we're pointing out is when a 3-5 won't deliver their heresy, and they get afraid to deliver their heresy because or just their view, what they're seeing, the reality of what they're seeing, the elephant in the room, or the messy nature of things, and then anyway, yeah. I don't know if that was a complete concept, but
well, I'm just going to put it out there. I'm always looking for people to help me with my law. This is my Jupiter law. I'm supposed to restrict my understanding of the now. This is my lesson, restricting. And this is not easy for me because I have a defined head, an ajna, that is always going back and, forward and backwards in time. Okay, well, the last time that I just hung out in the now, I ran out of money, for example. So should I be doing something different this time to make sure I don't run out of money while I'm hanging out in the now? Like, really, like, whoa. I don't know if do you have anything to share on that?
Well, I mean, without knowing much about the what it is to have my, sorry, I forgot I'm not the host here, so you can't see my cursor. The 22 and 20.2 in Jupiter for yourself, that to me,
the dogmatist.
Jupiter to me is just very expansive energy, is very expansive, and the 20 is contemplation in the now, and the 2 is this outward projection. So I feel like this is your gift, one of your gifts, and it is you're projecting outward this expansive contemplation in the now. What are all, we're contemplating all these amazing things. And
okay, but if Jupiter's expansive, but then what it's saying here is restrictive and intentionally limited understanding. Like, I'm supposed to restrict and intentionally
maybe
limit.
focused. It's focused in on something. It's you are projecting.
It doesn't say focused. It's restrictive and intentionally limited. That. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's just the second line quality. Is the second line is focused on what it's focused on, and it doesn't even recognize that maybe there is a more there's other areas that you can focus. There's other ways that you can, there's other perspectives. There's other, that's why it's an outward projection that you don't even recognize yourself. That's where it's the self restriction. Well, intentionally limited understanding. You're just, you're talking about, do I want to just continue living expansively, or do I need to go make some money? Or I don't know, is there a broader perspective in that conversation for yourself, to, I don't know, want to look at your chart for a second?
Sure. Yeah. Let's see here. This is the best one I have to share.
Yeah, that's
Of
fine.
mine. Okay. I'm gonna go grab my I Ching too.
Okay.
Okay. So I have it here if you want me to read the lines, but yeah, if you want to illuminate me. So I'll just mention, well, let me go ahead and hear from you. What do you see about my law, my personality law here?
Well, what I see is that your life is working.
And that's true. I mean, like, the truth is that my material life is fine. It's not anything that anyone ever told me was going to be okay. It's really like, when I list it out, I'm like, I would never advise. Well, I don't know how I say that, but I look around, okay, things are okay. But it doesn't seem like I followed the rules to get here. And then I'm like, wait a minute, but there aren't any rules. Got to dismiss that. Okay, so my life is working. I'm sorry to cut you off. Please continue.
Yeah, I mean, and you have 3/4 of this stream of instinct, which is very much about, and then you have the 45. You have almost.
Well, I don't have the 45.
Oh, the 21. Sorry, you have the 21.
Right. Okay, I would love to ask you about that, because it's a fork in my splenic center. I either go the stream of instinct way, or I go there, and so I do. Okay, well, let me hear you.
It's funny you use that word, because when we were talking about, like, kind of like a soft gaze at the body graph, this is where my attention goes. It's all coming out of your spleen. It's like forking in all these different directions. That's exactly what I thought. I didn't say that word, but you said it.
Okay, so this was my big homework from a session I had with an elder, a first generation raw student, and she said, you got this ambition into your, this fueling into your spleen, but then there's all these different currencies or frequencies in there, and your manifester one is the one that goes to right now. Now, she didn't say this next part, but in my head, I'm thinking, well, it's either going to go into the now as my law, or if I follow the stream of instinct towards the 45, and by the way, I meet lots of 45, 26s, of course, then that is way more fun for me. It seems like more fun, but am I violating my law when I do that and I pursue the ego? I'd love to hear from you.
No, because you need the other. You need the other to complete that. It's not that you're, wherever we have hanging gates, it's where we're meant to meet the other. And so there's kind of all this energy kind of going through here. I mean, not a ton, but it's a whole stream. That's this material stream here. There's all roads lead to the throat. We're all trying to get this energy to be expressed. So it's just an experience. It's not about your strategy, and it's not about your authority. It's not about your primary incarnation cross purpose in this life, but this is a part of you. This is a magnetism here that wants to probably be bridged. It probably feels it's just another experience of, what does it feel like when I'm with a electromagnetic 25 and 40 and 26 and 45. That probably feels good. Really good. This is
it does.
This is just you. This is individual. This is just you in the moment, expressing your penetrating awareness in the moment. So, and on that note, looking at we have 2 companionship channels. Transformation and brainwave. I think if you and I ever did, and I don't have either of those two bridging gates, but if we ever did a project together, we should do mystical and mundane trivia. I think we'd be really good at that. Because
okay, what do you mean by the trivia? And yeah, I'd love to hear more about that.
Random, I don't know. This is kind of a random thing I've noticed is, this channel, the 5720 channel of the brainwave, it's expressing a penetrating awareness in the now, but it's expressing it, and so manifesting it. It's not really a motor, but it's in a way this.
But for most of us, it's motorized.
Yeah, for you, especially you, this is
and
motorized.
You. No, and for you too. You have two motors into the 20.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Anyway, it's just one of those little things like that I think people with a 5720 are really good at trivia because it's very sharp. It knows things in the moment. It can know the answer, it just comes out of your mouth before your brain even can have time to think about it.
Did this happen to you when you were a child? Were you a child who like, I've got the answer? Did you do that?
Like in school and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit. It's
unconscious for you. It's double motorized and unconscious for you.
I think it's more in my one-on-one interactions, being single definition. A lot of my, things work best for me in one-on-one interaction. But and then this is more, this has a very mundane and mystical element here of raising up the tribe, rising from the bottom to the top, driven to always transform, all those things there. But anyway, I just think we could probably do have some I don't know if trivia is the best thing, but we're also born around, I think, within 6 months of each other too, so we're the same generation.
Yeah, you were born in October. Was that
August?
Okay, I was born in April 1977. Okay, yeah.
So yeah,
we
just 4 months apart. So yeah, we could do a little trivia about grunge, grunge rock or something like that.
Yeah, we went through all the same music.
Or gurus, something like that.
I don't know if I've had any gurus. Have I had gurus?
I've never used
that word.
I don't know. Well, in my or spiritual teachers, I mean, this might be more myself. I'm a second color motivation, so I have this theist, anti-theist trajectory. And that's been very much my life. For the first part of my life was, following other ideologies.
Well, I have the harmonic to that. I have the fifth color motivation, so I'm conditioned to conditioner. And holy shit, I've been in a lot of school. I've been way too many schools. It's stupid. When I look back at it, I'm like, do I need more school? I mean, I really already think that, but yeah, okay. We've been looking at our two charts. I want to get into this question about, the difference between us. We have two similar channels, but the big differences are you have a defined sacral and I don't. And this thing came up the other day that on Facebook that, brought up a bunch of discussion, and your design speaks, represents it specifically. You're red from the sacral to the throat all the way. I mean, you have this black 59, but you're purely there. So what this slide was saying, and this is raw from 1999 and from a source that I'm not totally clear, like what lecture this was, the context is missing. But you've seen what this says. My question is, do you make sacral sounds? Have you always made sacral sounds? Like, what was it like for you getting to revive that or not? Maybe I could phrase that better. Do you make sacral sounds?
I do. I'm a moaner.
Okay. Oh, so yours comes out in moans. Okay, I haven't heard it
Well,
yet.
that's
Uh-huh.
not entirely, not
Uh-huh.
entirely. I mean, I do have this awareness infusion, and I do have this link to the throat. I do, and this is what I do tell this to people, to manifesting generators, to all manifesting generators, really. Um, if you got a wiring to your throat, you have to listen to the words you say in the moment too, because
Hmm.
you do have that throat translator, I guess you could call it.
Right. So the difference that I explained the other day, tell me if this sounds right to you. So what this slide is saying is that if you have on between the sacral and the throat, if anything is black, then your sacral sound, which is not articulation, it's the opposite of articulation. Articulation in the throat is like what made humans able to communicate the way we do, and its words. And yet the sacral sound is not an articulation of the throat. It's a body sound, if
Mhm.
I'm getting this right. So what I'm understanding from this excerpt is that the if there's any black on the way to the throat, then it's going to articulate as a articulation of the throat versus a sound from the body. And
Mm.
so you get different. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. I would say that's authentic for me. That's true. That because mine's all unconscious. I
Yeah.
do I do make more sounds. I feel like I do make more sounds than I articulate.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a good little
And look at me, I do it.
yeah.
I just did it.
Well, you can still have an open sacral and make noises. I mean, people think, "Oh, I don't have." It's everyone has everything. It's just not consistent, and it's not where you're meant to make your decisions from. You can still be a moaner. Yeah, I don't notice it as much, but it's I don't think it's accurate to say just because you don't have a defined sacral, you don't make noises or sounds or.
Well, but is it really mine or is it conditioning? So I had a session with a projector a couple years ago, and it was recorded, and he was like, "Notice you're making these sacral sounds," and I was like, "Oh shit!" And at the time, I was renting a room in a house that was owned by a generator, and I was like, "Oh shit! Is that me making sounds because I'm being conditioned by this generator?" I mean, it was
Mhm.
something to notice. And when I noticed manifestors making it, I'm like, why are you doing that?
Right,
You
right.
know?
Well, I do body work, so I have
Mhm.
it's been a really interesting little side story here, just uh, little just personal experiment cuz I spend most of my days with bodies,
Mhm.
you know. We people come in, we say a few words in the beginning, a few words maybe in the middle and maybe a few words in the end, but the rest of the time it's just my body connecting with your body and tuning
Mhm.
in, it's taught me a lot about design actually. But I can, some people, you can tell if they're generators or not. The generators just moan, well, they moan the whole time, and or not the whole time, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I
Yeah,
can,
but
where there's other times where I'm like, I know I'm just giving I'm doing something incredible here, and there's just nothing. There's just nothing coming out of them. I'm like, this person's got to be a manifester or an open sacral being, which may or may not be true. And every now and then I get to validate it because I have this big human design picture on my wall, and it usually opens up the conversation at one point with regular clients. But
okay. Well, so many questions I want to things about that then, because for one thing, the week I met human design was the week that I touched 10 naked bodies in this class, where these, like volunteers came to my
what class
needing
was
touch.
that?
Well, it was. Have we not talked about this? Okay. Well, it was a class. Okay. I was in Costa Rica. I bought myself this class, like a week-long class called Kneading Touch, like kneading, like
Mm,
bread kneading. And 6'2" ego manifester that was a body worker extraordinaire, one of the only ones who's like fixed my body. And so I like, okay, sure, I'd like to learn how to touch people. And so
mm,
in this beautiful space in Costa Rica, he basically brought people from his tribe as volunteers. So every day there were at least two people that I got to work on. And um, okay, so I forget how that came up. There was that. But then the moaning thing that you said, because I've made a lot of sounds during body work. Okay, even when I was in Thailand training to do body work, I remember the guy saying she makes a lot of sounds when you work on her. Okay, but that's not sacral sounds, right? Because it's not asking for the life force response. Or
Well,
am I missing something?
I mean, if something feels good,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go and it's kind of my way
Yeah,
of
right.
saying
Me too. Me
that's
too, but
it
it's
is
not
a
sacral.
response.
Yeah, but it's not sacral.
I don't know. I guess that's for you to know.
Okay. Yeah, I
Maybe
guess.
you're splenic, so maybe, I mean, and your spleen is connected to your. No, we don't really talk about like a splenic. I guess we say a splenic voice, but it's. I mean, a lot of times when we talk about the spleen, we're talking about it in a quiet voice that's saying, don't do that.
Well, as an authority, yeah.
Or be careful, pay attention, don't go to that party, don't put that food in your mouth, don't sign that contract, whatever it is. But what if something feels really good to the spleen? What if the spleen is going, oh, this is really healthy for me, this is really, is there a different, does that voice, does it make
Usually
a
it's like,
sound?
ooh, ooh is one of them, and giggles,
Right.
and that kind of stuff. So yeah, and
Laughter,
I'm not,
tears.
yeah, all of that. But that's not sacral. Those aren't sacral sounds. Those, yeah. Okay. Okay, I want to ask you about this. So there are manifesting generators who like to say, I'm a manifester. And from my perspective, I'm like, dude, you have a defined sacral. That's not true. But I also want to ask you about that. From my perspective, it's kind of a demotion if you have a defined sacral to call yourself a manifester, because you don't understand how fucking weak manifestors are. I mean, this is really my trip. I'm like, the more I practice this, the weaker I seem in some ways compared to what I used to think was powerful. So I'm curious. See, even in this quote right here, theoretically, you have a manifester if it's not all unconscious between the sacral and the throat. But what he says, this is Ra's only 12 years into human design. It's 1999. He says, I advise you basically to treat them as generators and encourage them to be generators.
Sure. Well, yeah. There's lots of different types of manifesting generators. It's a little it's ultra generic when you get a chart generated and it just says manifesting generator, because it's like there's lots of different kinds of projectors. There's a handful of different kinds of manifestors, but there's a lot of different kinds of manifesting generators. So to be able to read the mechanics is what will be able to tell you exactly what's going on. So when you talk about generator, what you're talking about is the sacral center. The sacral center is the generator. So if you have, you can't have a generator in your house and pretend there's not a generator in your house. It's there and it's plugged in and you're a generator. So and anytime we talk about the throat, anytime someone has the throat defined, there's okay, the throat is the center of manifestation. So there's always going to be some kind of something coming into form, with whether it's connected to a motor or not. It's structuring or awareness or whatever, it's going to be expressed. So anytime we're talking about the throat, we're talking about manifestation. And then anytime we're talking about being a manifester, we're talking about a motor to the throat. That's not the sacral. So so just based on that, you can I would say the more correct aligned terminology is depending on how it's aligned. So if someone just has the sacral to the G and the ego to the throat, they are a generator with ego manifesting potential. That's what it is. And you can call it, and it's okay just to call it a manifesting generator, because that's fine. But it's just, as long as you know what you're manifesting. You're not manifesting your generative energy. You're manifesting once you respond correctly first, then you can manifest your willpower in the world. So, and then there's a lot more, there's other complex variations of it, triple splits, you know, like a triple split with who's got the sacral not connected to the emotional authority, but then it's still the ego that goes to the throat. You know, that's you know, then you have a generator with emotional authority and ego manifesting potential. So, you know, but that's too complicated to say or explain or give a like one little, you know, snapshot keyword title, you know. So it's a manifesting generator. But so people just have to know, what's your strategy, what's your authority, what's your type, what are you manifesting? And then that just kind of, I think, puts it in the right thing. And then once you add the conscious or the unconscious element to it, there's going to be some other variations to it. It's just you just see what the mechanics are, you know. That's the most important thing, because we get so you know, we become victim, I guess, to our own seven-centered history, mental history of, I need to put this in a box, I need to label it a certain way, I need it, you know, once I can label it, then I can, you know, master it, you know, then I can teach it to others, you know. To me, that's all very strategic. It's all overly strategic, when it's really, you know, let the story reveal itself to you. What are the mechanics?
Okay, speaking of mechanics, I want to ask you about this. So you are a manifester plus a sacral, okay? Basic, you know, is a way that you could say it. I'm curious, in your life before human design and in the first years of your experiment, did you live as a manifester? I mean, you have so much power to the throat. Were you and you have you know, trying to be certain mind, okay, were you living as a manifester? Did you have to go through a time of going, whoa, wait a minute, I need to only move if I'm in response? What was that like for you?
100%.
So you were a manifester before? Were you, I can imagine you and your 6'2" manifester wife were like two manifestors, right?
I don't know about that, but okay. I would, you know, the channel of charisma is a design where thoughts must become actions. And so, you know, however, like, again, however you want to label it is okay, but that's what I was doing. I wasn't operating through response. I wasn't being asked. I wasn't, you know, basically, you know, with my 3420 and yeah, and transformation, and, you know, my moon is in the 54. I'm like, I'm driven as fuck, you know. I am driven to transform and to manifest and to transform others and get deep, get intimate with others. So, you know, every good idea that I had, I thought I had to turn into a business, which is kind of what that turned into, which was, I had this
one. By the way, I do this too. I have these ideas. I'm like, that could be a business. That could be a business. And then I'm like, I don't do anything. I don't have any power, but go ahead.
Well, I don't need to share all the things I tried to start, because they're all cool things. They're all great ideas. But what happened is they all either broke even or lost money, or no one cared, or I didn't have the actual energy I didn't have the energy for it, is really what it came down to.
Okay. When you initiated from your mind, you didn't have the energy to follow through.
And then typical, you know, 3-5 manifesting generator. Let me spend all this money, skip steps, lose all the money, and then get frustrated and start from scratch again. You know, I mean, I had a lot of false starts. So yeah, it's, you know, I'm grateful to be post Uranus opposition at this point right now, and starting to, you know, feel a little bit of that wisdom kind of manifesting after, you know, making a lot of mistakes. My life looked a lot different in my in my earlier years. Very, very messy. Very, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Messy. Yeah, I can imagine that. And by the way, the 3 5s to me don't look messy, generally speaking, and I think it's got to be because my mother was a 3 5, my birth father was a 3 5, and then there's that harmonic. So I look at you guys and go, yeah, you guys are doing life, but I don't get to see. I don't see the failure parts of the third line very much. To me, it just looks like life happening. And then you guys have material in your lives. That's one of the things I notice. You all have a lot of material, the third lines, conscious or unconscious. Yeah. And I'm like, I can't maintain material. Material is just taken away from me, taken away from me, and taken away from me ever since I left the United States, basically. It's really bizarre how I don't get to keep any of my things. So I don't have any things anymore. It's weird. I don't necessarily like it, but it's how it is. Let's see here. We're right at about an hour, which is a nice little time to pause. I don't have any other slides I need to share, but I am open to opening myself up to questions. It could be any of these topics or anything on my body graph. Would you like to ask me any questions?
Yeah, I thought of a question just now because when we were corresponding about, hey, what are some of the things we could talk about? You mentioned you mentioned the channel of awareness, the 6124, which is one of your channels, and you were asking me about that as a parent,
Right, yeah. So I'm just going to show it, but yeah. So your son Pax was born 2.5 years ago. I think I remember the day he was born. It's like you said something on Facebook, and I was like, "Wow, look, he's going to have my channel." And I've been aware of this dude, even though I've never interacted with him. Okay, so anyway, 6124. Here's what we're talking about. So I'd love to hear from you.
Well, I've been trying to watch it in him since we had that conversation the other day. Because what I noticed is both of my kids have I have an older daughter and a younger son, and they both have the channel of logic, which is
okay. So wow, okay.
Yeah, a lot of mind stuff going on. And so I've recognized the cycle that goes between, mental ease and doubt. I really see that in both my kids, and at least the way that they relate to me. I haven't noticed the 6124 in my son until recently, and I know sometimes we call that channel the looper. I've had some friends call it that because it gets fixated in these mental loops about your ideas.
Well, the 24, the
returning, yeah,
you
sure.
know the return a little bit unconsciously.
Yeah. And so I see that in him. He runs around, he will repeat the same thing over and over again until someone repeats it back to him. It doesn't matter if you look at him, he needs to acoustically hear, he'll say like, daddy airplane, daddy airplane, daddy airplane, he'll repeat it until I actually say, yes, there's an airplane. I could point at it, I could nod my head, but until I say, oh yes, airplane, he'll stop. And it's kind of that's just something I'm noticing right now, is he almost needs to hear it back to go, to have that self-reflective awareness or something.
I might need this too, now that you're saying it. Maybe I'm doing this live thing just to get people on to tell me things that I needed to hear. Maybe that's happening for me.
I think we all get sucked into that dynamic in one way or another. Maybe more in our openness than anything, but so I was explaining that to ask you, you're not 2.5 years old. How does that feel? Do you recognize your loopiness? your
Yeah, I think I do. Yeah. And I
because
think it's just,
you don't have you don't have any gates from the ajna pointed towards the throat. They're all
No.
so this is interesting. This is kind of an interesting thing that I see in design in the body graph is when there's a channel like in your head centers, there's no way out.
Mm-mm.
You know, there's no hanging gates for it to connect.
Mm-mm.
I mean, you have those two pointing up to the throat, so it probably gets connected quite a bit. But when you're alone, how does that feel? So in other words, when someone has a channel between two centers and neither of those centers have any other hanging gates, it's almost like I recognize that as almost like a internal or even to the extreme of being like trapped inside. Like you have all these thoughts that you're looping or maybe fixated on, but there's no way to express it or no way to get it out. And so you need the other to come and help you get that flowing, get that out of you.
That's true. And yeah, I grew up with a mother who had the 2343, the same nodes as Ra, but that's a compromise. And it's a compromise on my design Jupiter. I'm actually really pretty concerned about myself with that channel. I think I'm just going to get crazier. Like I really am not sure I'm going to be okay with that happening up there the way it is. But I can't do anything about it. I can just watch myself go crazy. That's all I can do, right? Like I can correctly invite 43s into my world, and I do have 43s, and part of my big homework from my last session was to really study the 43. I have the potential to be really wise about insight, right? But they condition me also, so
It's not a problem.
it feels like a problem all of the time. Thinking feels like a problem all of the time. It has since I was a child. I started crying about like, where did life come from when I was 5 years old?
Well, theoretically, we're here to love our designs. We're here to love ourselves as we are. These are ultimately our gifts. And it's just when we, our openness hijacks our definition. You know what I mean? So
I do.
yeah, I mean, where
But I'm not saying that from my openness. I'm saying that from the pain of being in my head every day.
So, I mean, I would just say how do you work with it? How do you
I smoke a lot of pot. That's one of the answers. Yeah, I mean, you work with it. You just watch it happen, and you notice that you have like the most deep furrows in the brow of anybody I've ever met. I have, and I don't know. And it's only correctly, like I'm only correctly hooked up with other people if I initiate that. But when you're alone in it, like inside of a second line body with this head doing this, yeah, I don't know.
to me, it just says you have your own private process of working through your thoughts until there's someone there to help you get that out. So
Yeah, I guess so. I honestly, I don't know what to do with it. It seems like a burden to me, and I'm afraid for myself about it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we were talking a few days ago about that channel, and this guy who posted something about people with that channel, they're mediums. And I don't know if I quite agree with that, but I don't know. Do you see a mediumship quality to that?
I don't know. That's why I shared it with you, because I'm really curious about that. What I liked about what he shared was that he was saying that all these children that were born in this recent transit that have this channel, that they really need to be like, what do you call it? Like not institutionalized school wise. They need to be, and so that I agreed with that part. I was like, Yeah. Okay. I mean, I agree with that generally. I don't understand what he's saying about being in touch with entities and such, because I don't see how that channel has anything to do with what I understand about the rogue crystals and, whether you encounter angels or demons or entities. That to me, that was a different thing. So I'm not sure why he used that language, or if I'm missing something.
I see it more as an open head center thing. I see,
Yeah,
being
right. Yeah, exactly. Being a medium is more like, yes, exactly. I do too. So I don't know. I don't
because
know what.
if it's defined,
Yeah.
it's coming from inside, and
Yeah.
if you're a medium, you're open to the outside. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So I don't know. I
but
don't understand that part of that. But I've also heard this called one of the weakest channels in the body graph. I don't know if that makes any sense. Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it's good for. It's not helpful to me, is it? It just makes me think I'm supposed to do something with all that thinking, and the result is, yeah, I don't know.
well, to me, it just, I mean, in these moments right now, even though I don't bridge that for you necessarily, I feel I can still sense how it's bringing out that gift, because any of those head centers, channels between the ajna and the head, are here to help the other, here to help the other understand the mysteries of life, here to help others understand their inner truth. So I feel like when you get, we're all here to meet the other. So I feel like that's probably, and I think that's probably where you just need to be gentle on yourself, is because you live alone in in a foreign country, in a small town. So,
Mhm.
you know, finding ways to not let that enter that to not let the looper get the best of you, to get fixated, find yeah, I mean, there's no motor there. It's no motor. It's not meant to be the authority. Maybe that's what that means by it's a weaker channel, and it's individual, so it's kind of your own. It's not about the collective and helping. Yeah, it's not about the collective mind that's here to share. It's just the own unique mutative mind. So you can just be lost in your own process, but if you find the right way to be with it for yourself, I think it can be a gift. Some of my favorite artists have the 6124. It's such a
Like
unique mind.
musical artists or vision
Yeah,
artists,
yeah.
visual. Okay, okay. Bono comes to mind, but I don't know anybody else right now. Um, One thing I can say is that this 61, looking for silence. Okay, are you familiar with this part of the 61, like looking for the inner silence? So, one thing about being where I am now, this time of year, it's finally gotten quiet. Like
Hmm.
tourists are gone, and I can stay in my own aura when I go for a dog walk now. It's like, so the quiet is so wonderful. Okay, like I am alone and it's quiet, and it feels so good, and I enjoy it so much. But then I'm not interacting with people, right? And then you need to interact with people to do the material plane shit. So it's this trade-off. Like when the tourists were here, when people were around, when I was like interacting with 4 or 5 people every dog walk, I was like overwhelmed. Like everybody shut the fuck up, and these noises and where I lived and things were louder. And now I'm in this retreated, quiet place, but then there's no people, for better and for worse. So
Hmm.
it's a struggle. I don't know. And
That's probably one of your dilemmas. You're
mhm,
open sacral manifester, and yet you're a split.
mhm.
this really tight split with in the mind to the body.
Barriers all over my body. It doesn't do well for me when I let those barriers down. Speaking of which, I did want to ask you about the 59, but I might be out of energy. I'm not sure where I'm at. Thanks for
Okay.
asking about that, though. But no, I really do want to ask you this. I want to ask your experience.
Mm.
So, this is one of my dilemmas also. Like, okay, well, I need to interact with people, but like literally my body walks away from people most of the time. It's really rare that my body's like, I want to go be with somebody, you know? So, but I wasn't always that way. I mean, I had a lot more interaction with people. I lived in before human design, before I left the United States. So recently I looked back at all the charts that of people I've been intimate with, and there were a lot of 59s and 59 sixes. And it's been brought up to me recently by a 59-6 generator that, we 59s, we can get into your aura. Is that something that you're a 59. Do you notice that you're able to kind of get in there with the manifester in a way that, I don't know, maybe a non-59 generator couldn't?
I'd say that's been a pretty consistent experience for me with a lot of people.
Yeah, you're bumping into penetrating their aura. You're bumping into them and penetrating them at the same time.
If they're open to it, if they're, of course, the aura is the aura, but I just mean with manifestors, if there's a motivation coming from them, if there's a initiation coming from them to just come to me, to talk to me, yes, I can get in very deeply, and they feel there's something about, a lot of people relate that 59 to sexuality. That's definitely a part of it. It's coming out of the sacral center, very deeply intimate and sexual and creative, but it also is very warm and makes people feel very safe. And so a big part of my journey has been about exploring the depths of intimacy in all its forms. I've always been more of a monogamous person sexually, but in terms of all the other things I do, people just come and open to me, and I just watch it. There's some of it might be a fifth line projection, some of it might be what it is, but yeah, manifestors, projectors, I don't know, people come to me and just tell me their deepest, darkest traumas and secrets, and just this week, I mean, this is my life today, to where I've come to till today, but just in this last week, I've had 2 people just book consults with me just to say, I just needed to talk to someone, and you're the only one I could think of that I could tell you about what I was going through, and I could tell you that would understand or even know what I'm even talking about, and I just needed to talk to someone about it, and I just sit there and listen, so nice. And so whatever is in my aura, coming out of my aura, that makes people feel safe to open, then I accept that. And I enjoy it, and it feels like a real privilege and a real blessing that to be let in when people do let me in. So
well, that's a beautiful thing, and I think I'm gonna wrap that up with referring to your defined sacral. You can envelop people. Okay, you have this wiring that's similar to mine, but my aura says, "Stay the fuck out. I'm a wild card. You can't trust me." And your aura says, "Yeah, I've got the rhythm. I'm charismatic. I'm listening to you. My head's not going to get in the way. Bring it in. Bring it in. Hey, look at this. My aura will come out and get you." So, hey, you manifesting generators. Be thankful for your sacral centers. Thank you for being in touch with them, because I need those good vibes from real generators. So,
well, we've had our manifestor dialogue, and I don't want to end it just right there, because we all play a role, and we all, we're all humans above everything else, and so, yeah, we're all here to love and be loved, no matter what our type is.
Okay, I'll take it. All right. Well, thank you for your time and your energy today, Peter. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Isa. This was wonderful. I really appreciate it. Just so smooth and easy flow.
Yeah, go figure, companionship channels. Nice. All right.
Thanks.
Take good
All
care.
right.
Namaste, amigo.
Okay. Namaste.